So the first part of the process is just getting these guys used to the expectations and getting used to what I am in the gym every single day. Instead of doing it with words, they have to get on the floor and their actions have to set the tone, if they're going to be leaders. The biggest goal, and I'm being very honest right now, is can we continue to get better every day? Because then those things, the records and stuff, they take care of themselves.
Happy holiday, Roadrunner fans. You're just in time for the Coach Clark Show, where we get you caught up on your MSU Denver men's basketball team. I'm Eric Lansing, and we're still not 100% ready to get back in the studio to go live just yet. We're taping this interview and getting it up on the web to make sure you don't miss a thing from the 2015-2016 men's basketball season. And speaking of 2016, it's a brand new year. We bring in Coach Clark. Thanks for joining us, and Happy New Year, Coach.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time here, and we know you got a lot going on, but talk about the break a little bit. There's 7 days where you're not really allowed to be around your players, and they're going back home and visiting family and so forth. Does it make you nervous on a coach not to see him for that long?
No, I mean, it comes at the right time. When this first came about, I was gone from Division II, so we didn't have that rule. And then when I got back to Division II, I wasn't sure about the rule, because sometimes you work yourself into a nice lather in terms of playing well, and all of a sudden you shut down for 10 days or so. But, it's what it is, and I think now it's become an asset, because that's about the time where guys need a little bit of a break. Physically you start to get worn down a little bit, and then mentally as well. Getting your mind off basketball. I don't think it's that bad of a deal for a few days.
So mentally, to get away from you for 7 days is probably good for him too?
Absolutely. That's definitely part of it.
I also didn't get it, since we didn't do the show last time, I want to ask you about Brady Ferguson a little bit. You played against Regis. He's the new head coach over there. You sat with him on the bench under Coach Dunlap. How much pride do you get to see someone that you worked with sitting on the opposite sideline coaching against you?
Well, he's a great friend of mine over many years now. And, you want your friends to be successful. His path has been very good. He left Metro and got an opportunity to be a Division I assistant for a couple of years, working under a really good guy named Brian Katz, who's actually one of my mentors in this thing. And then he got an opportunity to take his own program at Western Oregon, and you can see what Western Oregon is doing this year. They're having a great year, and Brady's been a big part of that, trying to build that program. And sometimes timing is such where you don't get the full fruits of your labor sometimes. It just kind of seems to be that way. But he did a great job at Western Oregon. Brady's going to do things right. He's a worker. He's tenacious in how he does his business. And, he'll have the Regis program up and coming, real soon.
I know it's his first year, but do you see remnants? Do you see a little bit of Roadrunner basketball out there, and just the little bit of time you see? I know it's not his players, but do you see any of that in there?
Yeah, I don't know about Roadrunner basketball, because it's Regis, so I don't want to associate that and get it crossed up. I mean, it's still, we're competing against them at the end of the day. But you can see some of Brady's trademarks, so I'll put it that way. He's tough, and he's going to demand that those guys compete at the end of the day. And a lot of times when you take over a program, obviously you have to get the players that suit you. But, I think one of the trademarks you got to put in place first is toughness and the ability to compete, the willingness to compete. And that's something you can see that right now. They're going to compete. It's not like you can roll in there and play Regis and it's going to be an easy win. They've had very close games. They beat some people, so he's already imparting, his characteristics in terms of the toughness and competing.
Yeah, and they did play you guys really hard and just kind of ran out of gas at the end. But we're proud of Brady for what he's done and how he represents the Roadrunner name. Now let's get to the games this past weekend. You hit the road for the new year. First up was Adams State and Alamosa. The Roadrunners, you guys came to the contest with a 4-1 conference mark. They came in with a 3-2 mark. Your team came out strong in that game. It was 27-19. I mean, were you excited to kind of see a good start? I know after 2 weeks of not playing, we've seen some sluggish starts from your team at times, but it seemed like they came out a little bit stronger in this one.
Well, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get coming out of that break. I mean, you can have good practices, but they're not games. So we had the start we wanted. We were +8. And I thought we were about ready to, extend that lead, and then we just kind of relaxed.
ASU always seems to breed quick athletic players, long athletic players. Shakir Smith's obviously a fantastic player. One thing they like to do out and get in transition, and it seemed like it gave you fits a little bit, you guys not getting back in time. They got to the free throw line. That may play a factor in it to kind of get them back into the game for them to kind of take that lead.
Well, believe it or not, everything that we talked about was transition, defensive transition, and we got snake bit by, exactly what we said their strength would be, So we didn't do a good job of clamping on misses, and then they threw over the top a couple times. And as you know, if you get a couple easy baskets, you can be right back in the basketball game. And, so we relaxed, let our foot off the gas a little bit, and, we let them play the style of basketball that they're successful when they get out in transition. When it's a half-court game, they're a little bit different team, So obviously, we know how the game got tight. We gave up 18 points, I believe, in transition in the first half, and there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. They would push their lead into the second half. They lead to 11. About 10 minutes to go, they got a dunk that kind of got the crowd going a little bit. And that could have really put a dent in your team and on the road, the crowd getting into it. But you guys kind of just battled your way back. Kind of what did you guys do to kind of turn that around?
Well, we just got stops at the end of the day. We were able to put a couple stops together. When you're down 11, you can't trade baskets. You obviously have to score, but you have to get 2 or 3 stops in a row, and that's the beginning of a run when you get stops. And we always talk about kills, 3 stops in a row. That's a big emphasis for us, because if we feel like we can get kills, then it's a positive run for us. You got to score on a couple of those possessions where you get stops. And at the end of the day, we just kind of buckled down, and we were able to stop them a couple times. And, the scoring took care of itself.
You mentioned the scoring. Deshaun Phoenix scored the last 9 points of the game for your squad. He missed a couple free throws, which I'm sure is going to be a little irritating, but he grabbed a huge offensive board on a missed three-pointer to earn one of those 2 free throws. I thought he came up big for you, but throughout his career, he's not really been known as a three-point shooter. I mean, coming into the season, he was 0 for 2. This year he's got 12, and he hit a big 3-point shot for you guys. Talk about what happened on that play, and did you ask him to be more of a 3-point shooter, or just kind of developed as the years went along for him?
No, not so much. I mean, we always thought he could shoot the basketball. He's never had to be in a situation where we highlight 3-point shooting with him. We've had so many guys that could do so many other things, but it's not like this year, okay, he's going to be a 3-point shooter. He's always had that ability, and that's why we thought all along that he could be a hard matchup. Because obviously we're a ball screen team, and he's a pick and pop guy at the end of the day. He's not a pick and roll guy where he's going to overpower you. He can go down there. On that particular play, it was just good ball movement, and that's what kind of showed itself, and he, to his credit, when the shot presented itself, he was ready to shoot it, and there was no hesitation. And when it left his hands, it looked like it was good just because of his body language. He made a big shot for us.
You described the last few moments of this game that they take a shot, they miss it, they grab an offensive board, they call a timeout. How did the last couple of plays there end up?
Well, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that they were going to try and get Shakir Smith, a shot. And I'd be doing the same thing. He's a great player. So we just talked about, we went small in that situation so we could switch everything. We didn't really have a true big out there. Deshaun was at the 5, So we just talked about switching everything. We were up 3. So what we said is chase off the 3-point line, 2s versus 3s in that situation. And obviously you don't want to foul 3-point shooters. But when you boil it down, if they were going to get a 3, you have to contest it. But we gave, obviously, Shakir Smith a lot of attention.
Yeah, and I know last year he was here, he went for a layup and missed it, and he kind of slammed the court. So you knew, I think he had a little bit of revenge on his mind to try to maybe make up for that. I know it's a year ago, but some players, they keep that in the back of their head, and that was to make them competitive. So
yeah, I think competitors do that. They remember plays where, maybe they weren't at their best. That's what good players do, and it's a motivator for them. I thought we defended both those possessions really well in terms of switching out. And, when the one ball went out, we got a defensive rebound. We got him in the miss on that first one, and Brian Howard, I think, stepped out of bounds or something. His toe was on the line, so they got another opportunity at the end. But it was a tough place to inbound the basketball in the deep corner. The dead corner is a really tough spot. It's a deep corner inbounds. And I watched CU and Stanford last night, same kind of situation. CU had to inbound the ball with 7 seconds left in the deep corner, and they turned it over. Really, so what we did is we came back with a big. We came back with Bunama Keita in that situation to guard the ball out of bounds. And, we were fortunate they had to take a long 3. But who took the 3? Shakir Smith.
Right. Confidence to go on the road right out of the break? I know you guys just were trying to find your identity a little bit. Did you feel the team look like they felt good after coming out with a win like that?
Yeah, to me, that win, players don't look at it like I look at it, because I kind of try and see the big picture all the time. I didn't want to take the win off the board, because the win on the road is very difficult. And then the win when you're down 7 or 11 with 7 minutes left and to find a way to win, that tells you something about your team that's really good, the ability to keep competing, because in that situation, most teams will fold. So that's a good thing right there. On the flip side of it, it's my job to evaluate the good and bad, and I know that I call it pulling a rabbit out of the hat. When you come back from that margin, a lot of times, everything has to go your way to win that game. So, but we put ourselves in that situation. That's the flip side of it right there. And so we can't continue to do this, especially on the road against good teams, And the residual effect, Eric, is, if you really think about it, is how much energy did it take to win that game? And then all of a sudden in the RMAC, you got to front up and play a back-to-back against another tough team. So there was some residue going into the Fort Lewis game, because it took a lot of energy to try and get that game done, mentally and physically, and then all of a sudden you got to get back up, and it takes away from your reserves a little bit.
So Phoenix would end up with 14 points, 6 boards in the 74-71 win. Tony Dobbins led all scores with 20 points. Peter Mueller tallied 17. Let's get into the Fort Lewis game a little bit. You took an early lead in Fort Lewis, won a 16-0 run, kind of based on, some turnovers. Only had 4 turnovers in that run, which is an incredible number for you guys. I mean, you ended up with 10. I mean, it's still below the national average, if you want to call it that. What kind of sparked their run in the early going?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. When you turn the basketball over, it leads to runs that are negative runs. And, during that stretch, I probably should have burned a couple more timeouts. I did burn a timeout just to see if we could collect ourselves. It was their three-point shooting at the end of the day. We came out in the zone, and, we blew some coverages in the zone. We didn't get to the corners. And, when you give a good shooting team like that a couple of opportunities and the ball goes in, confidence. Three-point shooting, a lot of times it's ability, but it's confidence too. When you see some go in early, then all of a sudden they start making contested threes, because, so I just, and it's what we talked about. When you're on the road against very good teams, you can't get behind the 8 ball, because it takes too much energy, to try and dig yourself out of a hole.
Yeah, Andre Harris, Jr., helped you guys keep it within striking range, grabbing some offensive rebounds. I think he got 11, actually, when I went back and looked at that. Scored 9 first-half points, had an and 1. He would go on and score 18, like I mentioned, 18 points, 13 boards, 11 of them offensive. Didn't foul out, which I'm sure you're excited about. But we haven't talked about Andre Harris, the junior transfer guy. Talk about where you found him and how his progression this year has been for you.
Well, Adam Wall recruited him out of Illinois, at Illinois Junior College, and what we liked about him is his motor. He had a great motor, and we thought he could really rebound the basketball, but he just plays with so much energy. When we saw on tape during the course of recruiting him, just high motor guy. And that's kind of what we thought he would be that game. And to be honest with you, if he's not on the floor in that situation, that game really gets out of hand. I mean, it seemed like every time they were making a run, he got an offensive rebound and put back just to kind of keep us hanging around, And so that's something really positive to build off of. And again, when he's not in foul trouble and we can keep him on the floor, I think we get those kind of results from him, And he did a pretty good job of not getting in foul trouble in that situation, but he was really big.
So it's a 9-point game at the half. You guys get it within 5 with about 10 minutes to go. Was it the energy just lost after last night's having to climb that mountain to win that game, and then for Fort Lewis to be at home hitting those threes? Was that kind of the difference at the end?
Yeah, we showed a lot of moxie. We actually got it to 3, and then we had a layup that we missed in transition, which would have put it to 1. I mean, we really had a chance to put the hammer down, and if you get that game to 1, all of a sudden they get a little tight, and they have to get organized. We fought back and cut it to 3, and at the end of the day, it just takes too much air out of yourselves, trying to come back like that, especially their top 20 team, and when you spot them that kind of lead, it's 25-7, I believe it was, at one point in the first half, it just takes too much energy. You get it right to, okay, I'm back in the game, but in order to get over the hump, we've exerted so much energy. And again, I think that's residue from the previous night as well, too. We weren't exactly fresh, and let's talk about some players. Tony Dobinson's starting to show his class in terms of scoring the basketball. He's one of the top 3 guys in the league in terms of just being able to score, and So we have to build on some things that are positives. I didn't think Eric Rare played great from an energy standpoint at Adams State, and then the next night he turned it on. So you got to look at the positives on that. We can't get ourselves in situations where, we're spotting a team like that 15 points. It's just too difficult for anybody in those situations. And give Fort Lewis credit, they shot 12 for 25 from the three. 48%. If you yield that on somebody's home floor, it's going to be hard to overcome. Flip side, we're 2 for 15. So, that's plus 30 from the three-point line right there. So, but they're a very good team. On that particular night, we weren't at their level.
So the Skyhawks have come out with a 77-63 victory. Roadrunners now stand 5-2 in the conference. As you mentioned, Dobinson scores 50 points, also grabbed 7 boards. So for a guard to be able to get up and grab those, that's great. Phoenix tallies 12. Mueller chips in with 10 points and 5 boards. And coming up for this week, you guys are back at home, which I'm sure you're excited about. You guys take on Colorado Mesa, Westminster, both those games at 7 p.m. For those teams we played them just a few weeks ago, it feels like, do you go back and look at the tape? It's something that's so recent, or is it just more focused on what you guys need to do and you guys will be?
No, you definitely have to go back and look at the tape because with Westminster we got beat, and then with Mesa it was a very tough game, and so you go back to the tape and you have to make adjustments. Even though we beat Mesa, you have to make adjustments, because that game was tight. That's where our kind of little mini win streak started with Mesa on the road. We had our backs up against the wall, losing that first game to Westminster, and we showed some stick-to-itness to beat Mesa the next night, which is always a difficult place to go and play. And at the end of the day, they got, arguably the best player in the league, in Ryan Steffen. So you go back, you look at the tape, and you see the things you can do better, in that game. The schedule kind of works in our favor to this point. Some teams have been at home for the first part of RMAC, but now it always kind of balances itself out. We have 6 of the next 8 at home, and it's an advantage only if we win those games. But it's kind of stacked in our favor in terms of not having to go on the road a whole lot, in these next 8 games.
Yeah, you don't play Colorado Christian or Mines on the road, which is different. I know with the more teams and so forth, so that's a little different. But before we end the show, do you have any New Year's resolutions for your teams? I know your big thing is getting better every day, but there's something you can pinpoint that you want to see better from your squad?
Well, I just got to, for me, my resolution is just try and be patient. I'm not a patient guy in a lot of cases. And, at the end of the day, it was always going to be a long process because so many new guys, And so, what I don't want to do is say, well, we did this previous year, because that's bad medicine right there, because it's a brand new team right here. So to me, it's just trying to be patient, in situations, whether it's in practice, whether it's in the games, that's something that takes a lot of effort on my part. But, that's a good resolution, just to have more patience.
We can all use a little more patience in our lives for sure. So make sure, guys, to come out to the Auraria Event Center for both the men and women this weekend. Colorado Mesa on Friday, that's 5-7 for the men and women. Saturday, 5-7 as well against Westminster College. Coach, we appreciate you taking the time out, and great luck this week.
Thank you, Eric, and Happy New Year's to everyone out there.
Absolutely. We'll make sure you check us out next week. Hopefully we're back in studio to be able to bring you the show live, and then we'll have the show up on the web as we go along. So we'll see you next time here on the Coach Clark Show.